Welcome to a new section of the Geekly that I'm tentatively calling Podcastaway. If anybody knows the classic BBC radio show Desert Island Discs, this is essentially that, but we're doing visual media instead. Every time we do one of these, the guest will be asked to provide films, computer games, or a full series of TV shows, 9 in total, minimum of 2 per category, that they would take with them to, for instance, a desert island. I'm also giving them the option to choose where they want to be stranded. Because,
mine's a Mars colony.
Mars colony, beautiful. I'm giving people the opportunity to choose because, you know, the Geekly, we're all geeks. We take in a lot of media, and there are some pretty cool ways to be stranded in this day and age. Obviously, the standard one is the desert island. That's what, you know, they do in Desert Island Discs. So if you want to be stuck there, that's fine with me. You also get to choose one luxury item. The luxury item cannot be used for communication or escape purposes. You're also asked to provide a third book because you'll be given a copy of Watchmen and a copy of 1001 Films. In Desert Island Discs, they're given the Bible and the complete works of Shakespeare. So this is the little tweak on that. The first guest, you may know him from podcasts such as The Geekly, Leks. How are you today, Leks?
Hi, I'm doing good.
Do you know the rules?
I think I do.
Well, this is the kind of pilot episode, so we can. It's fine if you don't. So talk to me about you being stranded. How has this come about?
So yeah, I'm. I don't know how I ended up being the only person there. Maybe it's like, you know, everybody else was killed by underground aliens. Or how? Yeah. We just watched 2001 for our patrons, so that's kind of in my mind. The computer went crazy and killed everybody. And I'm the lone survivor. But I'm still gonna use the computer because, I mean, why not? Yeah. So it has all the kind of basic necessities like shelter, food, shower, bed.
It's the kind of in Desert Island Discs. That's just don't think about the details. It's just that's the idea. You can do anything you want. You've got food, you've got drink, you've got sustainability on this island essentially. So you have sustainability. Yes. You also have all the games consoles and a Blu-ray player, which is quite handy. So let's dive in. What was your first piece of media?
This was actually quite difficult when I'm thinking about it. So I started with box sets, and I kind of picked box sets for the maximum amount of entertainment. So one of them is one that, all three of them are really things that I can watch over and over again and still be entertained by. And one of them has several seasons as well. The first two don't. So the first one is the box set of Cowboy Bebop.
Cowboy Bebop. So talk to us about how Cowboy Bebop came into your life.
It was completely by accident, actually. I was in a hotel room, and I was flipping through channels while I was waiting for somebody to take a shower, and I came across this scene from... It's one of the later episodes, and I was just, like, absolutely... It was, like, halfway through.
Give a premise to people who haven't seen the show.
Okay, so Cowboy Bebop is an anime show about space bounty hunters, basically. And they're kind of a dysfunctional, not particularly great. They usually manage to like catch whoever they're after, but something happens so they don't actually get paid the amount of money. So they're constantly starving. They're constantly like out of food. Their ships are breaking down. It kind of centers around Spike Spiegel, who's sort of the main character. He and his partner, his bounty hunter partner Jet, who's an ex-cop, fly around, collect a few strays like Faye Valentine, a young hacker named Ed, who's hilarious, and a dog, and it's a super intelligent corgi named Ein. It's a bizarre little show. It's also very sort of philosophical and talks a bit about like the nature of relationships, the nature of like past and present. Spike's kind of nemesis now used to be one of his really good friends once upon a time when he was kind of more involved in like a mob type situation. If you like space and you like cowboys and you like adventure and you like ships and guns, this is kind of for you. Don't listen to it dubbed though. Watch it with the subtitles. Make that commitment. It's much better with the subtitles. The American voices just sound weird.
That's a very good rule for life.
Yeah.
And so is it a comedy show?
No.
Or is it more of a dramatic?
Well,
you portrayed it as more of a dramatic.
It's a dramatic comedy. Like it's definitely a drama, but it does have these comedic moments. Like Ed and Ein in particular. Like Ed is hilarious. She's got this incredibly long name and pretentious name. I can't spout it all off to you, but it's like incredibly long. The super hacker was found on this one planet drawing designs with satellite lasers. It's about like, I don't know, 10 or so, and just goofy as fuck, but super intelligent. And so there are these little bits of humor, but I would say it's kind of dark humor. It's more a drama than it is a comedy. I wouldn't watch it for the laughs.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing you feel like you could watch
I
10,000
have
times.
already watched it like 10,000 times.
Yeah.
Like it's the kind of show that like
Is it like comfort food to you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Like it's something I could just put on and I'm quite happy to go along with it. Yeah, it's entertaining all the time. There's always something to it. The music is absolutely phenomenal. They do a lot of like jazz and blues and a little bit of funk as well. Just about every episode is named after some sort of jazz or blues song. Everything comes together in exactly the right way, and it is kind of the perfect show.
I think when we did, was it Luke Cage, where we were talking
Yeah.
about the combination of jazz and fight scenes?
Yeah.
Would you say this is the exemption to the rule, that they shouldn't be combined? Do you think it works well together?
It definitely works in this scenario, particularly because like Spike's way of fighting is more defensive than offensive. He does a lot of like avoiding, and it's almost kind of like a dance.
Fighting with physics.
Yes, fighting with physics
Yes.
is very much kind of what Spike does. So that you add the jazz into that, and whoever did the music was really, really good at pairing together the right kind of sounds for the scene. Like you have some chase scenes, and you get the kind of more frenetic sort of jazz with like the different chaotic sounds competing with each other. They do a lot with, you know, the more kind of introspective scenes. You get the kind of blues thing. Like there's one episode, I don't want to like give too much away for people who want to watch it and haven't seen it yet, but there's this kid who's this sort of prodigy harmonica player, and Spike and Jet encounter him while they're looking for this like ex-criminal. So you have these like very mournful scenes of just like this lone harmonica playing, and like it sounds
so very
great.
atmospheric.
It is. It's very atmospheric. The music is used to such a great effect, and even like the coloring and the animation, it changes quite a bit. Like, I want to talk about the lighting, but there's obviously no lighting because it's animation.
Yeah. Shading. Is that
Shading.
the equivalent?
Shading.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Something like that. It's it's a beautiful piece of television, and I wish it had gotten more seasons. I think it's definitely the kind of world and atmosphere that, you know, we could have had 15 seasons of it and they never would have run out of stories to tell.
No more seasons, but we are getting a live action.
We are getting a
your
live
thoughts
action,
on John
and
Cho?
there is an animated film as well.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts on what you've heard so far about
I am
Cowboy Bebop?
so excited. I love John Cho. I think he's going to be a great Spike. The rest of the cast for it, like I haven't seen who's going to play Ed yet, but I know like the actor who's going to play Jet, I think is pretty well suited. Yeah, I've not been disappointed by any of the casting so far, and I'm really just excited to see it because it's been kind of floating around in the background. Oh, we're gonna have a live action Cowboy Bebop, and it never happened. So yeah, that's like my first one.
Numero uno. Let's move on to something else.
Next is Neverwhere, which again it's another short series, but it's also one that I can look at a lot. I've read the book several times. I've read the graphic novel. I haven't listened to the radio version of it, but I have watched the BBC drama several times. It came out in the 90s. Aesthetically, it looks very 90s BBC, which is kind of the equivalent to any American show in the 80s, essentially. The story and the world behind it is so rich and so detailed. Like, there's always something else to discover it. The casting is really, really great. I can't even count the number of times I've read the novel, and I watched the show and was just like, yes, that is who the characters are. That is what they look like. That is what they would act like. Not once did I look at it and think, I don't know about that person, which sometimes you get in adaptations of books.
Where were you when you first came across this?
Well, I didn't actually see the Neverwhere TV series until I was like in my mid-20s. I came across Neil Gaiman through Tori Amos, and my first introduction to him was through the Sandman comics, which just absolutely fucking blew my mind. They were a type of comic that I had never seen before, and it sort of reinvigorated my interest in comics, because like I'd been interested in comics as a kid. I'd been gifted like this huge stack of X-Men comics, and I just plowed through them, and there was this bookshop next to where my mom worked, and so while she was at work, I would go into the bookshop and get various comics and like sit in the cafe and eat them and read my comics and, you know, be a little geeky kid. And then somewhere between like 11 and 14, I sort of fell out of love with comics, and then I came across the Sandman comics, and that kind of reinvigorated it, and it brought me along to Neil Gaiman, who's one of my favorite authors. So I was probably 17 or so when I first read Neverwhere. I had yet to come to England. I'd been to Ireland, but I hadn't been to England. So there's this guy named Richard Mayhew who moves to London from Scotland, and you know, he gets a job that he doesn't particularly like. He gets engaged to this woman who he doesn't particularly have a great relationship with. He has just sort of this mediocre life. He's supposed to be going to this dinner with his fiance's boss, and as they're walking, this homeless girl falls on the street in front of him, and his girlfriend is like, no, just leave her there, like, they have people to take care of him, and he doesn't. He picks her up, he takes her back to his house. She refuses to go to the hospital. He kind of like patches her up and whatever, and it essentially launches him on this whole adventure into London Below. And if you're part of London Below, the people in London Above can't see you. Most of the people who live in London Below appear in London Above as the homeless people, and it's the idea that the homeless population is unseen and invisible to, you know, your everyday person, which is fairly accurate. But in London Below, they have this whole sort of feudalistic society, and each of the underground stations, you know, the angel Islington is an angel named Islington, and you know, Blackfriars, there is, you know, the Blackfriars, is that kind of thing. The show is done in a kind of trippy way, a little bit experimental like 2001, but not to like that extent. They do a little bit with just like making things look weird, is why I kind of say it's like very 80s-esque special effects. Very low budget, but super entertaining, and just something I can watch over and over and over again.
Yeah, did it make you want to go to London to like walk around?
It did. I wanted to, and you know, every time I go to London and I'm on the tube and we come to different stops, I just think like, oh.
What did you find appealing about it? Like a place you'd kind of never been to, so was that a kind of, did it call to you? I mean, what about the story was the appealing part?
It's kind of the mythology. Most of what I write involves world building of some sort. As much as, like, every single time I say I'm never going to create another world, the next project I do creates another world that's even more complicated and intricate than the one previous. So I really, really like other people who do the same, who are able to create these kind of captivating worlds that feel real and have an internal logic to themselves. And, you know, there's also a lot of humor in it. It follows the kind of hero's journey archetype, and it acknowledges that it's a little bit self-reflective in the fact that it's following the hero's journey of, you know, the call to art, the call to action, and the refusal, and all of that sort of thing. It's kind of about finding your place in life, and like maybe not doing what's expected of you, because, you know, Richard does initially do all of the thing. You know, he moves to London, he gets a good job, he gets in a relationship, he has his own apartment. His life's fairly sorted, but he's generally dissatisfied, and then he goes on this kind of wacky adventure and finds out things about himself that he never imagined he could do. And
in that sense, did you find it kind of informative to your life? Was there any part of it that spoke to you?
It came to me at a point when I was doing something similar to Richard, in that I was leaving kind of a small safe place and going to a big unknown place, and that's always kind of scary.
Absolutely,
I mean,
yeah.
I move around quite a bit, and I'm quite happy to like pick up and go to a new place, and it's a big adventure and everything, but there is always that little bit of trepidation of like, you know, I don't know anybody here, I don't know where anything is, I'm gonna have to like kind of start my life over and rebuild and put things back together, and it's gonna take a while, and it's gonna be a process, and that's scary. And it is a little bit of the hero's journey, because you kind of go and you find mentors and you find guides and you discover treasures and learn things about yourself in the process. So yeah, reading about somebody finding out that he could be heroic when he didn't really have any heroic traits was sort of inspirational at the time that the book came into my life.
Would you say it's a good interpretation, the TV show?
Yeah, I would.
As good as could be done at the time?
As good as could be done at the time. I don't know if I'd actually want them to like try to remake the show or make it into a movie at this point in time. I would almost be worried that like the special effects and stuff
too much money into it.
Yeah. That too much money would be put into it, particularly since Neil Gaiman's had so much success, you know, with Coraline and Stardust, and you know, both of those had a decent amount of money put behind them. I mean, you had Good Omens and American Gods. I was thinking of Robert De Niro. You had Robert De Niro in Stardust. You know,
I think Ricky Gervais was in Stardust. Somebody told me as well. I don't think I've seen it. Michelle Pfeiffer as well.
Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer. So you know, he's gotten to that point where like that kind of star power is in his stuff, and there is something incredibly charming and appropriate about the stripped down, low budget version.
Unknown
of
actors
Neverwhere.
as well.
Yeah,
I think
unknown
always
actors
can do that kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if they redid another version, I would be out there to check it out. But I also think that this version is quite a good adaptation and doesn't really need to be improved upon.
I have similar fears that one day Back to the Future is going to get the remake treatment.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, let's bounce on. Should we try a game?
Okay. Actually, I have most of mine are games. I mean, I have 2 films, 3 box sets, and 4 games.
Excellent.
And again, I tried to choose things that would provide lasting amounts of entertainment. No games that I could get through like super quickly. The first one is Skyrim.
Skyrim.
Yeah.
Excellent choice. I mean, you regularly hear people talk about at least like 1,000 hours of their life has gone into Skyrim.
I have been playing Skyrim for years, and I have never finished the game. Mostly because like I get into it for a few months, and then like I start having to do stuff, and I can't play it as much, and then I go back to it after a few months, and I'm like, I don't remember what the fuck I was doing, so I'm gonna have to start over. So yeah, I think it could safely keep me occupied for quite some time.
Skyrim has appealed to me every day since it came out, but I know that if I got it, I would never ever do anything ever again. It's that kind of thing where you could walk north for like days, you could walk south for days, and you could start the game over probably 5 times and still find not just little houses that you'd never seen before, but actual townships and things like that. How does Skyrim make you feel when you play it?
Well, it's quite similar to a lot of the games I play. I do play an awful lot of the medieval role-playing games, like Witcher, Skyrim, Dragon Age. Again, it's the mythology, it's the lore that really draws me into it, because it's not particularly the time period that I'm overly interested in, but
an aesthetic.
The aesthetic is definitely appealing to me. The medieval games in particular seem to have a huge amount of lore that goes into them. They have gods, they have the various monsters. It's digital D&D basically, and you have that kind of the same breadth of knowledge, and the thing I like about it is you can go into it as deeply or as superficially as you like. You could just pick up this game, you could pick up Skyrim and probably in a week finish it if you've just wanted to play straight through the main quest. But if you don't want to do that, you can spend months and years doing all of the various side quests and little perks and getting your trophies and all that kind of thing. So it's sort of something for everybody. You have the fighting element, the combat element, you have the magic element, you have the mythology and lore. There is a story there. Like in Skyrim, you can get married, you can have kids, you have houses.
They talk about gaming being escapism, but this is literally step out of one life into another life. Is it the kind of thing where you've had that bad day you can just retreat into?
Oh, definitely. It's really gratifying too if you've had a bad day to like go into something like Skyrim and wander around and kill a few beasts and maybe do a dungeon or so and whack out a couple monsters, and then you can meander off and do something, do a mission for the Thieves Guild or something like that. And like personally for me, I very rarely play tanks, so the combat element isn't like a super draw, but doing like the magic and the like the Thieves Guild is really interesting for me. All the stealth moves and sneaking into places and stealing crap and coming back and selling them and whatnot. That's what I like to do.
Now, I know you're obviously an Xbox One owner in real life, but I'm going to say that you've got the PS4 version of this because I believe you can do VR with it. Have you ever done that?
I have never done that.
What do you think that would be like?
I think that would be absolutely amazing. I think I would probably never do anything else if I had a VR headset. I would just be doing VR all the time. That would be it. There would be no podcast. There would be nothing else. I wouldn't be watching anything. I would just be like...
It'd be a podcast, but it'd be live from Skyrim. You'd be doing this while you were like dodging and weaving. I mean, when in your life did you come across maybe your first, or maybe Skyrim as well, but when did you first come across this kind of genre and this kind of sandbox 1,000-hour kind of game?
Well, they haven't been in existence for that very long. But my very first introduction to video games was the original Zelda on the Nintendo system. I didn't have a Nintendo system, but my cousins did, and we used to like gather together, and the older ones would kind of instruct us, because I think I was like 4 or 5 at the time, and we would 5 or 6 of cousins all together in a room. With like some 10 to 12-year-olds and some 4 to 6-year-olds, and we would play cooperatively, and that was kind of my introduction. And then my first console was the Super Nintendo, and of course I got Link to the Past and Final Fantasy 4.
So that was kind of the route. The the RPG.
Yeah.
Fight the quest.
That was like where I started in video
Yeah.
games, and that's just, it's always sucked me in.
Yeah.
And I think it does have a lot to do with the mythology, the world building, the fact that like you jump into this game and you're transported to a completely different place and a completely different world with a completely different set of rules, and you have to figure out how to be a hero. Yeah, I think it's
Just like life.
Just like life, you have to figure it out. Like, I go back and forth because, you know, like way back when we didn't have, you know, walkthroughs and tutorials and guides to like show us everything, and I kind of feel like a lot of games have gotten to the point where you can't actually enjoy them without the walkthroughs.
Yeah.
And I find that disappointing because it sort of feels like I'm cheating when I'm basically just following a walkthrough as I'm playing, going around. I'd kind of like to get lost and figure out the puzzles a little bit more, kind of go back to the old school thing. I mean, like somebody asked me recently, you know, what my favorite Zelda game was, and it was, you know, A Link to the Past, which is like kind of the first Zelda game that I ever owned. And I know there have been loads of Zelda games since then. Like, the animation has improved so much. There are all these different qualities to it, all these different attributes to it. But when it comes right down to it, I would be so happy to just sit down and play the old Super Nintendo A Link to the Past, and, you know, with little like 8-bit graphics, and, you know,
There's something timeless about 8-bit graphics.
Yeah.
Even now, just they bring joy to my heart to see them, no matter how many polygons or whatever Crash Bandicoot's got in his blue shorts these days. Something about that old school style will never go out of fashion. Let's move on to your next game.
This one is just because this is what I like to space out to. So The Sims.
Oh yeah, I mean, great choice. Really great
hours
choice.
and hours of endless entertainment there.
Totally different to Skyrim, yet you could spend thousands of hours and you can create yourself a life, you know, get married, have kids, etc, etc. I mean, what was your first Sims game? Sims 1?
Sims 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you kept it throughout?
I've played every incarnation up to Sims 4, have almost all the expansion packs. I love building stuff. I love designing stuff. I mean, that's mostly what I do in The Sims. Every once in a while, like, I do play a family. It usually gets a couple generations, and then I'm like, screw this.
Burn them to the ground, literally. Yeah.
But I spend most of my time kind of perfecting their house and this and that. And I do come up with different scenarios. Sometimes I play out characters and stories. I have them do things, or I like design Sims to look like characters. Sometimes I just play to play. But yeah, it's, you know, there are a lot of different ways you can approach the Sims game, a lot of different ways you can play it, and yeah, it's a good time killer.
What would you say, and I'll allow you to go back through the ages, what would you say your favourite expansion pack is?
I really like the Sims 3 University Pack, and I really, really want one for Sims 4. For some reason, I really, really enjoyed that kind of experience, and I've been waiting for them to add it to Sims 4, and they keep adding these different expansion packs, which are fun and nice and whatever. Like the most recent one, the Island Adventure one, that's pretty cool. I've been playing that world most of the time. I also liked the Sims 2 Apartment Living, which they haven't really done again. I like the ability to have roommates that you don't control, that are just like, they aren't actually part of your household. Their funds aren't part of your money, but they pay you rent and whatever. And that's another thing that I would like to see, because Sims 4 does kind of have the apartments with city living. It's not done as well as the apartments in Sims 2. Because the worlds in Sims 4 is a little bit weird. They create the neighborhoods for you rather than you having the town. So you can't really design your own apartments like you used to be able to.
Apparently the Fox Disney merger killed a Sims film that was coming out, which I only found out about a couple of days ago.
I don't know if that would have been super interesting.
No, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, the Emoji film, the Lego film, the first one, okay, it was okay. It didn't, you know.
The Lego films are awesome.
I think
they are awesome. That's it.
I haven't seen the second one.
I will die on that hill.
Okay,
they are awesome.
Who is The Sims for? If you could sell The Sims to people that are listening to this, maybe haven't tried it.
If you like designing anything, whether it's outfits or interior design or architecture, it's for you. If you like controlling other people's lives, it is for you. If you want to be a god, it is for you.
I think the cheat for Sims 1 was Rosebud.
Yeah.
Is it, for all the infinite money?
Yeah.
I think I used to
it's
use that.
Motherlode now.
Is it?
I think the success of The Sims is that it appeals to a wide variety of people. You can make the game any kind of game you want. Like, you can have a horror game. I mean, there are vampires, there are ghosts, there are mermaids now. I miss the werewolves. I would like some more werewolves.
It feels like a non-gamer's game. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, like, you don't have to be a hardcore gamer. And I know a lot of, like, the hardcore gamers are like, oh, if you play Sims or Animal Crossing, you're not really a gamer, which is bullshit. If you play a video game, you're a gamer.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to call yourself a gamer. If you don't want to call yourself a gamer, you don't have
absolutely.
to. It's the kind of game you can make it what you want it to be.
Yeah.
And literally.
Yeah.
You can design the story, you can design the characters. It can be as casual or as intense as you want. There are loads of different Sims challenges of, like, different rules for you to play the game. You know, like, there's the Legacy Challenge. There's, like, the Homeless Challenge. You can have, with the new Island Adventures expansion pack, you can have an off-the-grid property. So that, like, that's a new challenge of, like, because, you know, electricity and plumbing doesn't work, so how do you...
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of Discovery Channel programs where they're basically off the grid, and that sounds really appealing.
Yeah.
There should be a Doomsday Prepper specific version of The Sims, I think.
I've contemplated doing, like, a Legacy, because there are also variations on the Sims Legacy Challenge, and I've contemplated setting a challenge for me to do, like, a Doomsday Prepper. Like, I've continuously been trying to create the perfect bunker in my various Sims worlds, so that's probably going to be my next step.
Cool. Well, let's move on to maybe another TV show or a film.
Well, let me do, because I only have one more box set, so I'll do that one.
Yeah.
And I picked Star Trek The Next Generation.
Well, I mean, we started watching The Orville recently, and I said after The Orville there was a hole in my life for a show like that, and you said try The Next Generation, and I've been watching Series 1, and it's just beautiful, and people tell me it's like the worst series.
I mean, there's the whole nostalgic thing. So I grew up with Star Trek The Next Generation was my introduction to Star Trek. That's what I grew up with. You know, it's got several seasons to it, so it sort of has the longevity. I mean, I've seen every episode in the series, and I can still watch them now and be entertained by them, which I think is kind of a mark of good storytelling and good characters.
Very approachable, very wholesome, and yet sci-fi.
Yeah. And
it's the kind of thing that families can... You know,
and I think it portrays a world that I would really like to live in.
Absolutely.
You know, I would love for us to get to that point where there isn't discrimination, where there isn't this division of countries, and that the entire human race comes together and works for a unifying peace. Okay. Because of Star Trek The Next Generation, is the whole reason we were talking about it in 2001. Like, I want to live on a spaceship. I want to go into space. It's why I'm on a Mars colony. It's fucking Star Trek.
Yeah. And when was the first time you think you saw any kind of Star Trek? Not necessarily The Next Generation.
I would have been young. Probably 5 or 6. My mom was a big Star Trek fan. She grew up with the original series, so I grew up watching The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine right along with her.
So when you think about The Next Generation, does it give you kind of... Do you reminisce about younger you?
A little bit. Like, you know, I remember being a kid and watching it, and sitting in the living room, like, curled up on the couch watching it, and like, Deep Space Nine was on Saturday mornings, so it was kind of part of the, like, Saturday morning cartoon sort of thing.
Yeah, was it appointment television for you?
Yeah, we never missed it.
Yeah.
I've picked quite a lot of things that have this sort of, like, comfort food feeling to them.
Was that one of the earliest space stories that you saw, do you think?
Yes.
And that was one of the things that planted,
I think,
fandoms and other worlds.
Star Trek definitely started me off on my sci-fi adventure, and I just kind of, like, doubled down on it, and, like, now I study apocalypses and dystopias, so...
Yeah. It's interesting to be able to trace back where those kind of elements came from in people's lives.
Yeah, because I didn't actually see Star Wars until I was a teenager.
So now, would you consider yourself Trek or Wars? Trek, yeah.
I like Star Wars, but if you give me a choice, I will watch Star Trek anytime.
Yeah, for many years I was Wars, but I'm definitely now more of a Trek. It's quite a recent development. I like that they always they preach hope, and they're out there not as warmongers. They will defend themselves.
They're explorers.
They are explorers, and there is something so romantic about the idea that Jean-Luc Picard wanted to grow up and be an explorer instead of, discovering...
And he's an archaeologist, which, like, I wanted to be as a kid. Like, I was really, really into that, and then I realized that there really aren't that many jobs for archaeologists. So I went to, like, an English major instead, because that is so much more employable.
Yeah.
Alright, so films I picked kind of 2 recent films. One is not going to be a surprise to you at all. Thor Ragnarok. I mean, let's just give the people listening some context. Before Thor Ragnarok, Thor was like garbage to you. Yeah,
you
I did not like
the first
Thor.
one. The second one, I think we agree, is the worst film in the MCU. So you probably went into that with like zero expectations. Did you know who Taika Waititi was before
I didn't.
that? And
no, actually I did, because I knew about Into the Shadows.
yeah. And so this came along, and yeah, what happened?
It blew my fucking mind.
Did we see this together in the cinema? I think we did.
Yeah, we saw it together, and it blew me out of the water. We suddenly got a like fully realized 3-dimensional Thor. It was complicated. We got more of the intricate relationship between him and Loki. We got, you know, the whole thing with Hela, and, you know, sacrificing the city of Asgard for the people of Asgard. Plus also the way he related to the Hulk and to Bruce Banner, and it just, you know, it was funny, it was fun. We got to see sides to characters that we'd never seen before. We got Valkyrie, who is just a kick-ass character, and I'm so excited to see her.
King of Asgard.
Yeah, King of Asgard. It's a film that, like, there's layers to it, and you can watch it over and over and see more and more aspects to it, and I really appreciate that.
It's one of the MCU films where you could probably list 10 great moments. You know, some real standout moments, whether she's catching the hammer and crushing it, where Banner jumps out of the ship.
Oh,
and just,
I love that moment. That's so great.
I mean, that's the hilarity. And then immediately Hulk is fighting the wolf, and that's your seriousness. You know, it could bounce between them when it was necessary.
And then you have the moment where, like, you know, the Hulk jumps out of the water and he goes after the guy who's destroying
the big red fiery
Asgard,
dude.
and Thor's like, Hulk, don't smash. He's like, big monster. And he's like, no, for once, don't smash.
I liked even the beginning when he was held up by chains in front of the big red guy. Korg, again, you've got the entrance of Valkyrie, literally her entrance where she falls off the bridge, but Korg as well, voiced by Taika.
The best, her entrance is one of the best entrances in the MCU.
Absolutely.
Without question.
Absolutely, without question. She is as valid a member of the entire MCU going forward into phases 4 and 5 as anybody. She's the kind of person riding on her Pegasus that you'd want to see in a female Avengers or A-Force film moving forward.
I would love to see a Valkyrie film.
Thor 4, I mean, you're looking forward to it. Taika Waititi again?
Yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled for Thor 4. Ragnarok went from, like, hating Thor to he's one of my favorite characters now. And so I'm just so thrilled that we have Taika Waititi doing Thor 4, bringing Natalie Portman back. Valkyrie's going to be in it. Yeah, I think it's just going to be a phenomenal film.
Where would you say Ragnarok falls in your MCU? Certainly top 5, isn't it?
It's my favorite.
It's number 1.
It's number one. Yeah, Guardians 1 used to be my number 1, and it got replaced by Ragnarok. So now Guardians is still in my top 5. I'm not sure where in my top 5. This is the thing about the MCU. There are a lot of really good films, and so, you know, ranking them, even, I mean, aside from Dark World, which is the worst film ever.
Yeah.
But, like, ranking the other ones, you know, putting some film as, like, you know, number 12 is not the same as saying it's a crap film. It's just saying these films are so great.
Yeah. I think I do a kind of a top 5 or a top 10. I may have to do like a top 5 for team ups and a top 5 for solos, because I think 4 of my top 5 are team ups.
Yeah.
Because Daddy loves a team up. But yeah, I think Thor Ragnarok is, I think, probably my 6th favourite. I think it's my 2nd favourite solo film after Iron Man 1. But again, just really good. I think it's a great choice. Now, in traditional Desert Island Disc style, we now ask you to provide us with a book and a luxury item. You get given a copy of Watchmen, as I explained at the beginning. You get given a copy of 1001 Films to Watch Before You Die. I think that's what it's called. What is your 3rd book?
I'm going to be kind of cheeky here because it's technically more than one book, but I would do the Sandman comics, the whole collected Sandman comics. They're a huge part of my adolescence and really kind of got me back into reading comics and graphic novels again. At the time, because this was before Neil Gaiman became very famous and was doing films and stuff, I would just tell people, like, oh, my favorite author is Neil Gaiman. They'd just look at me like, who the fuck is that? So yeah, trying to find the collected paperbacks of the Sandman comics after the run had ceased. There's 77 issues, I believe, and they've been collected into 8 books or something like that. But I couldn't find them an aunt bought me like the first 3 or 4 of them, and then I had to kind of go on a quest to find the other ones, and I've spent so much time in the local comic shop being like, do you have this one yet? Do you have this one yet? Can you order this one for me? They didn't know me by name, but I was the guy who was really into Sandman.
What age range were you when you were reading these when they first came out?
I was probably 15 or 16, and it's stretching over to 17 and 18 when I got the final ones. It took me quite a while. particularly I think The Wake and The Kindly Ones, which are the last 2 books in the collection. For some reason, it was really difficult to get them stocked in. But I mean, The Wake is absolutely gorgeously illustrated. Michael Zulli does the illustrations, and he does it in like this kind of shaded pencil, and just it's beautiful. It's probably one of the most beautiful comics out there.
And what kind of world is it?
It's the real world with a little bit of magic. The idea is that the world is kind of run by the 7 Endless, which are destiny, death, dream, desire, despair, destruction, who is abdicated, and delirium, who used to be delight. And there are 7 siblings. Essentially, all of the religious figures in the world exist. You know, at one point, they all come to the Dreaming to visit Morpheus, because he has the King of Hell, and all of these different factions and deities want the King of Hell for themselves, and they all have like plans. But you have like the Judeo-Christian mythology, ideology. Don't really want to offend anybody, but the angels are there. You've got Hindu gods coming into it. There are fairies. So yeah, it's the real world with a bit of magic thrown in, which I particularly like. And I mean, if you like things like Stardust or Coraline or Carnival Row, this will be right up your alley. It's also quite dark, which I really enjoy as well. So there are quite some graphic scenes. Somebody's face gets cut off at one point, and it speaks later. So, but yeah, there are witches, there are dragons, there's a talking raven. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of everything you could possibly want out of a comic series. So yeah, that would be my choice for my book.
And finally, what is your luxury item that you're going to have in your Mars?
This one was actually quite difficult. Like, I was trying to think of what I could possibly want as a luxury item, because so much is kind of provided for me in terms of like, you know, having gaming consoles and things to watch and stuff like that. So I went with a jukebox, because iPods are not really a thing anymore, and I wanted something that like I could have a huge music database to listen to, because you don't want to like go to a deserted colony with like 1 CD and have to listen to that 1 CD for the rest of your life. Yeah. So I thought, you know, a jukebox would be kind of a fun thing.
I think you've set the bar very high. Your world will never be a silent one.
No, I won't.
When you're walking through like an abandoned Mars base, I can think, you know, the silence might be quite overwhelming at times. So, yeah, I think there's a bit of an antidote to that. Leks Drakos, thank you very much for being guest 1 on Podcastaway, as it's tentatively being called. Thank you for your time.
We hopefully will be doing more of these with other people, not us.
If you would like to be one of these people, please get in touch. And let us know if you think this was a good thing. Let us know if you think this was a bad thing. Give us your feedback. You can be one of our patrons on patreon.com/geeknerd. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/thegeekly. We are on Twitter @geeknerdpod, and we have a shiny website, geeknerdpod.com. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.